Australia. At first glance, it seems like one of the best countries to live in the world, but beneath this image lies a paradox that no one has ever imagined. In a nation of 27 million people, over 122,000 Australians are homeless on any given night. That's roughly 1 in every 221 people. For the younger generation, the dream of home ownership has become a fantasy. The median house now costs over 9.7 times the average income, one of the worst ratios on the planet. Today, a first home buyer in Sydney needs a deposit of more than $250,000, and even then, the typical mortgage consumes up to 45% of their income. The Australian dream has become so unattainable that nearly 70% of renters under 35 believe they will never buy. But how did the lucky country become the least affordable housing market in the developed world? Over the past 30 years, Australian home prices have increased by more than 400%, while wages have risen only around 110%. This divergence is one of the largest in the developed world. Economists traditionally define affordable housing as a price-to-income ratio of 3 to 1. Yet cities like Sydney and Melbourne now sit above 10 to 1, placing them among the least affordable markets on Earth, surpassing London, New York, and even Singapore. For much of the early 2000s, interest rates trended downward, falling from above 7% to as low as 0.1% in 2021. These ultra-low rates expanded the borrowing capacity of buyers by as much as 30%, inflating prices accordingly. But as inflation surged post-pandemic, the Reserve Bank of Australia raised rates to over 4%, marking the fastest tightening cycle in modern Australian history. Monthly mortgage repayments on a typical loan increased by $1,500, pushing potential buyers out of the market overnight. The shock illustrates a deeper issue. Australia has become structurally dependent on cheap credit. When credit tightens, affordability collapses. When credit is cheap, prices inflate faster than wages. Either way, the outcome is the same. The dream of ownership moves further out of reach. Australia's population growth has long relied on migration, but in the years following the pandemic, intake surged dramatically. In 2023 alone, net migration increased by over 500,000 people, adding the equivalent of a mid-sized city in a single year. Housing supply, however, failed to keep pace. Construction approvals dropped by 26%, while material and labour shortages pushed build times up by 40%. Economically, migration remains critical for workforce renewal, tax revenue, and innovation. But when infrastructure and housing fail to expand proportionately, the pressure spills directly into property markets. More households compete for fewer homes, and prices escalate beyond what local incomes can sustain. Australia is seen globally as a safe, profitable market, stable politics, strong legal protections, and reliable returns. Foreign investors, particularly from Asia and North America, have poured billions into residential property. Between 2015 and 2023, foreign investment approvals grew by over 60%, even with restrictions in place. In some inner-city markets, foreign buyers accounted for 15 to 20% of new apartment pre-sales. While foreign capital is not the primary cause of high prices, it amplifies existing pressures. Investors typically target high-density developments, but their participation inflates land valuations and encourages developers to prioritize luxury builds over affordable housing. Moreover, Australia's property market increasingly behaves like a financial asset, not a place to live. As long as real estate is treated as a global investment vehicle, local buyers are forced to compete not just with each other, but with international wealth. The global system that once guaranteed cheap building materials has fractured. Trade tensions, pandemic disruptions, and geopolitical realignments have pushed material costs higher. Timber prices jumped by up to 45%, steel increased by 30%, and shipping times from Asia doubled in certain quarters. Australia's construction sector, already strained by labour shortages and regulatory delays, could not absorb the shock. The cost of building a standard home rose by nearly 28% within 2 years, making new supply prohibitively expensive. At a geopolitical level, Australia's reliance on foreign supply chains is revealing a strategic weakness. Without diversified sources of building materials, domestic housing policy remains vulnerable to global disruptions. Investors own roughly 30% of Australian housing stock, one of the highest rates in the OECD. Tax policies like negative gearing and capital gains discounts incentivize investment, pushing more buyers into the market for profit rather than residency. As investors compete for properties, first home buyers struggle to keep up. In 2024, investor lending grew by 18%, while first home buyer participation dropped by nearly 10%. This imbalance not only inflates prices, but also distorts rental markets. With vacancy rates falling below 1% in major cities, rents have surged by 15 to 20% in a single year. The rental crisis is the flip side of the ownership crisis. When people can't buy, they're forced to rent, and rising rents push them even further from saving for a deposit. Across decades, governments have attempted to address housing affordability through grants, incentives, and tax reforms, but many of these policies have had unintended consequences. First home buyer grants increase purchasing power, which in turn raises prices by the same amount. Planning delays add an average of 2.5 years to large development approvals. Additionally, local zoning restrictions limit density, reducing the number of homes available in areas where people actually want to live. Even major housing funds fail to address root causes. A federal pledge to build 30,000 affordable homes over 5 years meets only a fraction of the 640,000 low-income households currently in housing stress. Housing policy in Australia has not failed because of lack of effort. It has failed because the incentives governing land, taxation, and investment are fundamentally misaligned with affordability. Australia's housing crisis is not merely an economic issue, it is a generational reckoning. Home ownership rates for people under 40 have fallen from 67% in 1981 to just 36% today. The gap between those who own property and those who do not is becoming a permanent economic divide. If current trends persist, analysts project that median house prices could rise another 20 to 25% over the next decade, even under moderate economic conditions. Housing is becoming a marker of inheritance, not effort. A system designed to reward ownership is now punishing those without capital. And unless structural reforms are made, the impossibility of owning a home may become an enduring reality. For the lucky country, understanding the crisis is the first step, but solving it will require confronting uncomfortable truths about investment, taxation, land use, and the very nature of Australia's growth model. Until then, the dream of owning a home in Australia will continue to drift further out of reach, not because people are working less, but because the system they inhabit is working against them.